Now let us talk the source and the beginning of the handshake from page 135. Now that the meeting was in the State House, Kenyatta had just arrived from the detention camp that is Kapenguria after 7 years in different camps. So that evening meeting became very confidential with some very meaningful discussion for the good purpose. That the ears of the enemies were not welcomed to hear and understand whatever that transpired between our conversations. Perspired for the revolution. Odinga came from the Luo. He had a young boy by the name of Amolo Odinga. Kenyatta had a young toddler by the name Kamwana. Children went out to play lifundo, a ball designed from the polythene paper. As we continued with our discussion in the main house, two boys played excitedly. Each one managed a goal and scored the opponent. They were happy not until Odinga was denied his goal he had just scored from a penalty point. Failed to agree, he frowned. The ground began to shake. His ancestors back in the lake region were also awakened. They sensed a problem in the city. His cousins took to the street and protested, demanding the international spirit to intervene and calm the problem in the capital city. Our meeting will not continue. The ground shook the destabilized peace of the entire nation. And so we called in the two boys, asked them to forgive each other and shake hands, a sign of come together. Easily they forgot their differences and began celebrating, dined together, and exchanged biscuits for their new covenant. That day, they sat again together, took their evening meal, and began the handshaking. I knew their taste for the chicken meat. My boy Kamwana wanted me to lick his lips. Agwambo, for that matter, would go for the fish, but given that a chicken meat had been served, he wanted me to have a taste. I had a piece of myself in my pocket. After kept safety for yesterday's meal, I gave him Ndumbo to share. For 1 good hour, they sat there in absolute silence, reading each other's mind as to who would break the silence and unravel the puzzle before them. The first means the first person to give an idea that will give a better share for himself, to break the bonds and have for himself the better share. That's how we had for some times the Breaking Bonds Initiative, the BBI. It actually lasted hours in a total absolute silence as they thought hard for the answers with a puzzle before them, either for a win-win-lose or a win-loss competitions. Finally, somebody brought the Tom silent and began chatting and gave to more and more for such important discussion for the peace and stability of the country, Kenya. The two boys had grown together, moved on, and nowadays have a better place to shake hands, an official place, the Harambee House, the only place who can sit alone or with one very important person to talk and contemplate on serious matter of national importance before he will join his friend Ruto in the State House for a cup of tea. And those were the days, and the genesis of the handshake began with the two young boys in the State House before leaders and the grown-ups embraced for the Harambee House. Though he had peace restored, Raila changed his face and frown. He began demanding for respect from his young defiant friend Uhuru, who had grown big-shouldered with support from his defiant friend Ruto. He had forgotten the long journey they had traveled with Raila, with biscuits and juice collars they shared in the State House. Raila frowned his face, and wrinkles will be seen on his face. He could smile only when there is a referendum. He had declared himself the people's president because he enjoyed full support of the poor and marginalized communities like those of his blood Luo, the Luyas, and those from Coast and Ukambani. He welcomed his no-nonsense brother Miguna. The duo defied and objected to any role from the State House, not unless their demands were considered. They could not be threatened with the treason. If anyone talked of treason, Miguna simply said, "Come, baby, come." And those are the days we experienced a fear regional post-election violence until the spirit of the two proud boys humbled. After recognizing that the country belonged to the people, the two boys found it necessary to cool the political animosity. They realized they had an obligation to lead our nation, but not to lead an endless war that will shed more blood. The country is big and much more important than an individual. For reason, they were obligated to lead the nation to the promised land, Canaan. When Raila saw the crocodiles in the river Jordan, he humbled himself. He saw the flesh of his brothers and sisters being torn apart. The crocodiles had no mercy on Musando and the young boy Jacob Juma, who cried helplessly inside the sharp tooth of one single giant crocodile. He trembled and dropped his quest for precious. He stretched his hand and offered to greet his competitor to make peace and harmony for the people of this country. Immediately, a task force was formed to implement the agreement of the two boys. We went round and round the nation and checking our enemies, drumming up for the support of BBI reggae tunes. We gave an ultimatum of 1 year to the doubting Thomases so that all the other political goons surrender their machetes, pangas, power saws, hacksaw, and any other crude weapons hidden for a political retaliation. There was nothing as important as an idea whose time had come. One single boy had said in his lifetime. King Martin Luther said, ask his followers as he championed for the rights of his fellow blacks American overseas. He will not live to celebrate the freedom, but his ideas are to live for generations. Raila emulated that same message and pushed on the agenda amid his opposition. We had self-condemning fellows, the defiant cabinet, with selfish interest for power, who wanted to contradict the efforts and the ambition of the two ringleaders. I will observe the stress Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta had on his face. Such fellows wanted to subject his efforts into meaningless political wind. He demanded they pull down all his suggestions to bring back the country on its course. With little rest to observe and support him for the Big Four national agendas, they kept off their duties to perform his Big Four agendas, such as precisely leave the legacy of his predecessor, Honorable Mwai Kibaki, with the United Nations. Mr. Koinange had missed his girlfriend Uhuru. On the bench, a hot discussion that culminated into hot, rough, and messy talks. He would blow fire extinguisher to calm the strict, hot, and burning nerves of his guest on the bench, responding to his tough questions. Maybe to get some insight of the matter, posed hard questions and demanded for a yes or no answers. For instance, he asked Honorable Raila, would you run for 2022 presidential election? And demanded for a prompt answer. His ugly face will not encourage any guest to smile upon during their interview. You had to prepare adequately for that interview. Few minutes talk with him, lest you be caught off guard and reveal the personal secrets meant for the time and seasons yet arrived. Tough moments before nationwide observed television citizen TV, such an investigative journalist with tough minds made Uhuru to skip our JK live debate, and as well, he skipped the army parade and signified his presence in the country. He opted for a private line and moved straight to his resting sleeping room at the State House. Koinange, a superimposed journalist, managed to find Miss Dana, the state spokesman, so that she briefed the nation were a part of her beloved national father. And like his predecessor, Mr. Alfred Mutua, who spoke so much with the government project, Miss Dana simply dismissed him and asked Koinange to leave immediately, lest the tired, angry, and sleepy president bounced on him with clubbers and blows. Our president had been disappointed to his neck. He was tired and angry after a long, tiresome and disappointing trip to China. A hectic trip indeed, with hopes to materialize his dreams. On the contrary, he was denied coins to implement and finish his Big Four agendas, with a simple but a conclusive reason that the clothes of the self-condemned boys had grown and were ready to pierce the walls of the national treasury. Self-condemned boys who were ready to drill a whole treasury into their pockets. Examples of Mobutu's Sese of Zaire, whom in his presidency dumped the whole of his national treasury basket into his bedroom bed and controlled the entire of his country's economy from his bedroom. Our self-condemned boys had done it before and has mastered the skills to carry the enough sacks behind their backs. In a dark sense, one more practically dug a hole right from the Uhuru ground and emerged upright in the heart of a central bank. Nobody will see how he transferred the sacks to his waiting cars. Hii sio pesa mamako bwana. These are not your mother's money. The leader of the majority team exclaimed to be heard after being pinned down. He will not let it go after his demands failed to secure more funds from the halls. After many of the halls had been sealed, Honorable Dwell vehemently reproached the government efforts to combat corruption. Speak of Alfred Mutua, the young man had quick moves in whatever he did. He encouraged himself in various government duties and thought quick wins in whatever circumstances. He walking steadfast, those short and small side. His mouth was full of words, but he spoke quick and read so many of government development programs. Ever after his tenure as a government spokesman, Mr. Namasako people overwhelmingly voted him to spearhead county project. For the 2 terms, he led the Machakos County with the revitalized quick projects that he termed Mandela Chap Chap. The whole of the Masaku town being installed with streetlights within no time after he assumed the office of the governor. Dusty roads in there that had failed the previous government took him a year to be cemented, became red carpet for the many visitors streaming into the country as they came to enjoy the green, beautified Machakos Park. Foreign filmmakers found the place there a perfect place to shoot videos. Music producers and the local artists will be found there, leave alone the Londonwood producers. Our own Riverwood producers made their content from that ground, shoot videos in our own soils with their own voice. One morning, I traveled down to the coastline on my official security work. I had to pay our firstborn a courtesy call before embarking on my official duty. Mr. Joho, the governor to the county number 1, Mombasa County, impatiently waited for me to handshake. Thereafter, I'll take time and visit various coastal beauties before resuming to my official work. That's all to observe and take care of general coastline securities, report findings to the capital center, and make possible recommendations for the safety of our people who lived in the coastline. Maybe, given time, I'll hang around Vasco da Gama houses to go down to all the and even go through the old town and enjoy the sea breezes. Just then, I observed strange faces, 3 strange faces coming from the Jaws residential premise. He had an official residence just across the famous Kenyatta beach. The 3 men dressed on a white kanzu had also paid him a visit and waved back to say goodbye as they made their way through Kenyatta Street and got lost before reaching far. I felt suspicions. Behind their back, they had portrayed like objects with safety pins. I felt sorry for Joho that he will not recognize the undifferentiated friendly visitors upon from the enemies of our country, the terrorists, who had just paid him a visit with preachers that they were business managers ready to ship out any values to the Arab from the Arab origin at a fair and better prices as well, bring something better back into our nation. Some impulse. In fact, Joho called upon Najib Balala, our tour guide, to show them around and make them comfortable within our land. He wanted his noble visitors to feel welcome. Balala knew all the tourist destinations in our country. He had mastered his tour gates and he knew all the corners of the country into his palm. All the tourist attraction centers. In fact, later on, he was appointed the cabinet secretary to the tourism sector. But alas, his new clients had greenest by their handbags. A tourist from Arabian world from with the bombs and detonators. They spoke Arabic Muslim dialect. An open-hearted man, Joho, welcomed all visitors regardless of their personalities. In fact, offered them a place to dine and rest their bones after such a long and tiresome journey. I reported such delicate security matter to the government intelligence, but due to somebody's negligence, perhaps slept in the work, they will not respond immediately. 2 weeks later, an American embassy was set ablaze with the bombs and grenades, just beside the Fundi house. Chapter 7, page 140. Time came for me to harvest my bitter sweet. My big dreams had become real. What Katete had decided inside had begun also to be accomplished. To materialize his vision, I prayed that God rest his soul in safe place in heaven, so that one day I'll meet him there and we will sit in a private corner, smile and chat the struggles we had on earth to realize the victory of our land. I took upon his mandol. He had become old and weary. We led him to race. Somehow 1978, slightly the days after President Kenyatta had also departed. The nation mourned our hero Kenyatta. But as we Basonge clan mourned in the village our hero Katete, I had to keep his flame burning. When I shared that to Naliaka, she welcomed my new idea wholeheartedly and gave some thanks. Immediately, the next day we packed a few items and set off to the village. I knew the sign motorcars had been brought. It was big and carried many people. A bus. It moved fast than that of the train. Machakos country was well known as the Machakos airport had been well designed for our country buses to stand. Many villages are lighted and boarded from that very point. Name them the Akamba, the Abakusi, the Doluo, and our own the Luoya buses stationed from the particular point. The Somali also paid their relatives there to travel far region far from our country within our Kenyan borders. They termed as they live in another world from our Kenyan soil. Talk of a Pokot person from Lodwa, at Turkana, and also those from the Moyale, Marsabit and Shola, they think to live in another world. Man, We are from Kenya going to our Marsabit or the Isiolo. They think to live in another world. Men, we are from Kenya going to our forgotten places. He could explain as he bought his bus. Man, how is Kenya? How is Kenya? By the way, another man shouted as he alighted from Lodwar Express. Honorable Nyangabo greeted me as he came down his bus after traveling for a fortnight in the road in a company with his compatriot, Honorable Nanok from Turkana. The two boys were hungry and thirsty for Kenyan waters. Men, will you, in our country, it does not rain. Will you mind for a cup of water? I need to drink this Kenyan water. We will die before getting to our meeting. Our president is waiting for us. He wants to hear, he's waiting to hear something from our forgotten region, the northern eastern forgotten corridors. Honorable Nanoko explained an assumption of the region whereas our president thought, can something good come from that desert? They had plenty of good news packed for him, the rich culture, the Nilos and the Kushets, plus the well-packed bracket of oil basins. Once you enter the country bus, you will observe several buses plying different routes. The Keroka liners, Mombasa, Raha, Masaku liners, Garissa Guns, Somalia, Al-Shabaabs, and even the Marsabit Bullets. I will not forget the name that belongs to the bus that will travel to the western region, the Mawingo bus. Occasionally we had an escort that will come along as the Wibui escort. That bus will escort and offer some security in case there was a danger in our way, or perhaps our bus had been fully loaded, and perhaps, or maybe an accident on our way, or a puncture on our way. We had to have an escort behind us. That packed to the full. All the passengers will not find seats. Some will stand all the way down to their village. Perhaps if you miss a place to lay your bottoms, then you'll stand all your way to the village. You'll be required to get some space, get hold of yourself onto the metal, and stood as you travel. These are the days we didn't have Michuki roads. The traffic rules that came, the tough travel rules that came about.